It's getting quite dark in my room, so I'm just going to film a really quick lesson about Macbeth as a tragic figure. Because it's kind of dark and spooky, I thought tragedy works best, or kind of dark things, so I thought I can just do a really quick lesson on tragedy, tragic heroes, and how they relate to Macbeth as a character. So the first thing you need to do really with Macbeth is understand the whole context of tragedy and tragedy plays and what those are. They come from ancient Greece and they get kind of carried on throughout history up until the present day. So it's a very ancient form of drama. It's got a lot of rules to it. Not every writer sticks to all of those rules. So it's kind of, when you're a bit more confident on tragedy, it's interesting to see like, what does a tragedian, what does someone who writes tragedies choose to keep or choose to change about their tragedy? So in Macbeth, I would say it mostly does actually conform to the rules of a conventional tragedy in most ways. So a tragic hero is a figure that is heroic in almost every way. So they're in a position of power in society, they're highborn, they're noble, they're very popular, they're responsible for the people around them. Usually they're very intelligent. Usually, almost always, they're very successful up to the point where you meet them in the play. And this obviously all ticks the boxes for Macbeth. Well, Macbeth ticks all these boxes. So he's really, really successful. When we hear about him in the first two scenes before we see him in the third scene, so we don't see him until scene 3, we just hear about him from other people. And everyone's always talking about brave Macbeth, noble. You know, they have these words that are positive and they kind of attest to Macbeth's good character. So when we meet him and he's obviously not good, he's kind of twisted and flawed and manipulated, it creates more dramatic intensity there. So he's a tragic hero because he clearly has at least one fatal flaw, which we call a hamartia. So that's a good tragic term to remember. We're supposed to debate what that flaw might be. So a lot of people think it's ambition. A lot of people might think it's kind of that he's physically strong but mentally weak, like he's susceptible to other people's influences, especially the witches. And Lady Macbeth, they kind of push him down this path of darkness. It might be that he's just indecisive and he doesn't really know his own mind, so everyone else is able to kind of take everything that's good about him and twist it into badness. Might be that he's power obsessed beyond everything else. It might be that he's paranoid because he gets really paranoid that the witch's prophecy is not going to be true, and that's why he decides he needs to kill Duncan. So there's a debate that if he just kind of left it, it would have happened anyway. He didn't need to do anything. So you can think about that as well. There's a couple of other really key tragic terms to do with tragedy and to do with Macbeth when you're talking about it that are quite useful. So one is Peripatea, which means a turning point, a point of no return. So the moment that the tragic hero does this thing, there's no going back. We know that, you know, they're just going to die. They need to keep going and eventually they're going to die. So I would say that this is actually quite early in Macbeth, because I think when he kills Duncan, there's no way back from that. He's committed treason, he's committed murder, he's gone against his king. It's just a huge transgression. So up to that point, he's influenced and kind of interested in evil, but he's not actually evil. It's the action, I think, personally, that makes him evil. There's also Anagnorisis, which is the point where the tragic hero realizes they've done something wrong and that there's no way back. So I think this is actually really late in Macbeth. Personally, I would say that Anagnorisis is the bit where he realizes Macduff is going to get him. So he's like, you know, no man born of a woman shall harm Macbeth. And then Macduff says Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped. So he's like, well, I wasn't technically born of a woman. And at that point, Macbeth realizes that these witches' prophecies are kind of all twisted and that there's no way to escape his fate. And it's quite interesting because he reacts with bravery. He still fights Macduff at that point and he says, okay, I'm going to just embrace my death at this point. So there's these interesting tragic terms that I just wanted to get you used to, and I wanted to start you off thinking about Macbeth as a tragic figure. So he's not just a random character, he's a tragic character, and he follows the rules of a tragic hero. we have tragic hero, we have fatal flaw / hamartia, we have Peripatea, and we have Anagnorisis. There's a lot more tragic terms, but I think if you can get used to these 4 and get confident with them, then it's going to massively improve your essays, the way that you deal with him as a character. So yeah, it's almost dark, so I'll stop, but hopefully that was useful and you're feeling a bit more confident on Macbeth and tragedy. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys soon.